On a cold winter night in Nebraska, a truck driver named Jake was driving along Interstate 80. Snow was falling lightly, and the highway looked almost empty. Jake had been driving for many hours, carrying food supplies across the state. Around midnight, he noticed another semi-truck behind him. The truck was old and black with dim yellow headlights. It stayed far behind at first, but slowly got closer. Jake looked in his mirror again and again. Something felt strange. The truck never passed him. It only stayed behind, matching his speed exactly. After another 20 minutes, Jake stopped at a small gas station near the highway. He got out to buy coffee and stretch his legs. But when he looked around, the black truck was gone. Jake asked the gas station worker, "Did you see a black semi-truck pull in behind me?" The old worker looked confused. "No trucks came in," the man said quietly. "You were the only one here." Jake felt nervous but returned to his truck and continued driving east on I-80. About an hour later, thick fog covered the road. The highway became dark and silent. Then suddenly, Jake saw the same black truck again in his mirror. This time, it was much closer. His headlights flashed once. Jake grabbed his radio and tried to call another driver, but only loud static came through. Then he noticed something terrifying. There was nobody in the driver's seat of the black truck. Jake's hands shook on the steering wheel. The truck moved closer and closer until it was right behind him. The horn blasted loudly through the night. Suddenly, the black truck swerved into the other lane and disappeared straight into the fog. Gone. Jake slammed on his brakes and stopped on the shoulder of the highway. His heart was pounding fast. The next morning, he stopped at a diner and told another trucker about the strange truck. The older trucker became quiet. Then he said, "People around here call that the shadow trucker." He explained that many years ago, during a terrible snowstorm on I-80, a truck driver lost control and crashed into the freezing river below the bridge. Neither the driver nor the truck was ever found. "Some drivers still see him at night," the man whispered, "especially during snow and fog." Jake never forgot that night. And even today, some truckers driving through Nebraska say that when the roads become quiet and the fog rolls in, an old black semi-truck sometimes appears behind them, silently following in the darkness. Late one rainy night in Arkansas, a truck driver named Mike was driving down a lonely highway. He had been on the road for almost 10 hours and was very tired. Around 2 a.m., he saw an old truck stop glowing in the distance. The sign outside flickered weakly in the rain. It looked old, but the parking lot still had a few trucks parked there. Mike decided to stop for food and coffee. When he walked inside, the place was strangely quiet. An old country song played softly from a dusty radio. The lights buzzed above him, and the smell of bacon filled the air. Behind the counter stood an elderly cook wearing a white apron and an old trucker hat. The cook smiled and said, "Long night on the road?" Mike nodded. "Yeah, need coffee bad." The old cook laughed softly and started cooking eggs and bacon on the grill. As Mike ate, he noticed something strange. The cook never seemed to blink. And even though the grill was hot, no steam rose from the food. Mike tried making conversation. "You work here every night?" The cook looked at him quietly for a moment. "Every night," he answered slowly. A cold feeling ran down Mike's back. Suddenly, the lights flickered hard. For 1 second, the whole diner went dark. When the lights came back on, the cook was gone. Mike stood up quickly and looked around the kitchen. Nobody was there. Then he heard footsteps behind him. An old waitress appeared from the hallway, staring at him with pale eyes. "You saw him, didn't you?" she whispered. Mike felt nervous. "The cook? Where did he go?" The waitress looked toward the empty kitchen. "That cook died 20 years ago," she said quietly. heart attack right beside the grill during a stormy night. Mike's face turned pale. The strange thing, she continued, is that truck drivers still see him sometimes when storms come through Arkansas. Mike quickly paid and hurried outside into the rain. As he climbed back into his truck, he looked through the diner window one last time. Standing behind the grill was the old cook again. Smiling, watching him, Mike drove away fast and never stopped at that truck stop again. But some truckers say that during rainy nights in Arkansas, an old roadside diner still serves hot coffee, cooked by a ghost who never left his kitchen.
Late one foggy night in Pennsylvania, a young truck driver named Ryan was driving through the mountains on a lonely highway. Rain hit the windshield hard, and the road was dark and slippery. Around midnight, Ryan's truck suddenly made a loud noise. Bang! The truck shook hard, and one of the tires blew out. Ryan carefully pulled over to the side of the road. He sighed and grabbed his phone, but there was no signal in the mountains. The rain became heavier. As Ryan stood outside looking at the damaged tire, he suddenly saw flashing yellow lights coming through the fog. A tow truck slowly appeared behind him. The truck looked very old, with rust along the sides and faded paint. The driver stepped out wearing a dark raincoat and an old black cap pulled low over his face. "You need help?" the man asked quietly. Ryan felt relieved. "Yeah, my tire blew out." The tow truck driver nodded silently and started working immediately. He moved strangely fast, almost without making any sound. A few minutes later, the tire was replaced. Ryan smiled. "Thanks, man. How much do I owe you?" The driver looked at him for a long moment. "Drive carefully on these roads," he whispered. Then he climbed back into the tow truck. Ryan reached for his wallet, but the tow truck suddenly drove away into the thick fog. Fast. Too fast. Within seconds, the lights disappeared completely. Ryan got back into his truck feeling uneasy. But when he looked down at the new tire, his blood turned cold. The tire was old and covered in dried mud. Stamped into the rubber were the words, "Property of Miller's Towing." The next morning, Ryan stopped at a small diner and told the waitress about the strange tow truck driver. The waitress slowly stopped pouring coffee. "Miller's Towing," she whispered nervously. Ryan nodded. The waitress looked pale. "That company closed 20 years ago." Ryan felt chills run down his arms. She explained that during a terrible storm years earlier, a tow truck driver from Miller's Towing died while trying to rescue stranded drivers on the mountain highway. His truck slid off a cliff during heavy rain. "But some people still see him," she said quietly.